about a borderless Africa, which seems to be the theme for this hour. Africa's bold vision of seamless inter-continental travel is gaining steam. Now, the African Union and the African Development Bank are calling on member states to accelerate visa liberalization, recognizing that restrictive visa requirements undermine the continent's economic integration and also mobility ambitions. Now, situating this within broader policy frameworks like Agenda 2063 and the African Continental Free Trade Area, they stress that true unity requires removing bureaucratic barriers among African nations. The push is being propelled by dynamic grassroots movements. The Trans-African Tourism and Unity Campaign, spearheaded by Ghanaian politician and also activist Ras Mubarak, launched a historic Trans-African road trip from Accra to 39 nations. The 163-day journey, covering tens of thousands of kilometers, aims to rally public and also political support for a truly visa-free Africa by 2030.
And regional leaders and institutions are urging visa-free travel across Africa as an essential step towards economic and social integration. Meanwhile, TATUC's pioneering road campaign is bringing this idea directly to the people, turning policy ambition into public momentum.
So we're joined by Honorable Ras Mubarak. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I hope you can hear us. Grand, there you are. Honorable, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Oh, grand. We're going to work on that. Thank you very much. Mr. Mubarak, could you please give us an idea of what a borderless Africa could seem like? What are the economic advantages? What are the relationship advantages between countries? What are we looking at if this was to come to fruition? Honorable Mubarak, I'm hoping you heard us. Oh, I think that we have a case of bad network here. But this story is rightly placed right after the one that we just had now, where we spoke with Desmond from earlier about the NBA conference from over the week and Malema's call for a united Africa. My suspicion is this, that if we have an Africa that has one united currency, especially that currency, we will begin to rival other first world countries. Right. I hate the word third world, by the way. Not very happy, but I'm looking at a situation where Africa becomes not just a continent, but a united country itself, and that can rival other nations. I'm being told that we have the Honorable back with us. Ras Mubarak is joining us back to have this conversation about a borderless Africa. Honorable, I hope you heard my question from before. I'm going to repeat it, but I was asking what exactly a borderless Africa would look like in terms of the economy and inter-country relationship.
Well, you're talking about loads of jobs for our young men and women. You're talking about our people being able to move from one point to the other. A borderless Africa undoubtedly would spur growth. You know, it would create sustainable jobs. It would promote cultural tourism amongst our people. And it would promote harmony amongst our people. We were not consulted, you know, when this whole division of Africa was done in the 1800s. You know, but time must come, you know, for us to be able to do that immediately. And we are of the view that, you know, a borderless Africa can happen in the next 5 years instead of the 40-year plan that the African Union has. Because truth be told, 40 years is a long time from now, it's a generation from now. And the young people in Nigeria, in Cameroon, in Egypt, in Ghana, and elsewhere on the African continent do not have 40 years. You know, they are looking for opportunities, you know, and so it's become crucial that we get our governments to buy into this and ensure that, you know, the borders are taken down so that Africans can move freely without hindrance. I'll give you a typical example. We're supposed to be in Cameroon on Wednesday. We got to the Ekok, you know, side of the border where Cameroon shares a border with Nigeria, only for our Cameroonian brothers to tell us that they do not recognize or accept e-visas at the land borders. Now, you know what that meant? It meant that we had to drive 10 hours back to Calabar to get visas into our passports and drive back to the border before we could cross. Lost time, resources, etc. you know, and so this is the reality of the African wanting to move from one part of the continent to the other. And we are hoping that leaders would listen to us. You know, we're hoping that they would see the urgent need to tear down the borders and make it easier for African nationals to be able to move seamlessly, you know, within the continent of Africa.
So, Honorable Ras, like you mentioned, you're campaigning through, you know, an epic road journey, Calabar to Cotonou and moving on. What do you hope this symbolic act will achieve that speeches alone cannot?
So, as you may be aware, we are non-state actors. Clearly, the state actors are not moving fast enough. I mean, if the AU can set a target of 2063, 40 years from now, it tells you how out of touch the African Union is. So we want a situation where leaders would, you know, make commitments to having this happen within the shortest possible time, hopefully in the next 5 years, you know, so that our people can access education, so they can access opportunity, you know, so we can trade more amongst ourselves and explore each other's, you know, cultures. Recently, when we were in Abuja, for instance, we had, you know, masa with alefu soup. Now in Ghana, masa is taken with porridge in the morning or, you know, early afternoon. Something new we learned in Nigeria. We also saw in Calabar how lush and beautiful and green Calabar is. You know, that is because as West African nationals, it's easier for us to come into Cameroon. So Africa has a lot to showcase to the world. And we need to promote intra-African trade, intra-African travels to be able to create the necessary jobs for our people. And speaking of trade, look, all the continents of the world are thinking about themselves and looking inwardly. And I've said it time and again that Nigeria is big, the big brother of West Africa. Nigeria can decide to carve a niche for itself and supply for the rest of Africa, you know, a certain commodity that would lead to job generation. Take Morocco, for instance. Morocco is the biggest producer of fertilizer on the continent of Africa. Africans have no business bringing in fertilizer from Ukraine and Eastern Europe and South America. We're not saying we don't want to trade with the rest of the world, but we want to take care of our own first. Europe is thinking Europe first. America is thinking America first. We've got to think about the well-being and the interests of our people. And the more we trade amongst ourselves, the better, you know, for our people.
It's a very interesting take, and I'm very happy that you experienced, well, unfortunate though, but I'm happy that you experienced a bit about Calabar and the crossing into Cameroon. In fact, when you spoke about Calabar, Queen here was very excited because she's from that part of the country. However, Mubarak, now let's talk about this true borderless Africa. Your experience at the border is one that I want to bring into note here, where you find that Africa is not only divided into states or countries, it's also divided into regions. You have West Africa, North Africa, Central Africa, and also Southern Africa. However, within these regions, you still find that while we have a West African Union, we have internal policies that really prohibit us from actually access into other countries or even trade. Nigeria, Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana. It's very difficult to get through. It's only 400 kilometers between here and Ghana. And the last time I tried through the land borders, it took me an entire 24 hours to get there because of the little policies that these countries have themselves, even if we are a West African bloc. Within that West African bloc, you still have other disadvantages, and that's the language. Between us here and you there in Ghana, there's the French-speaking Benin Republic and also the Togolese. So with all these different climes and these different, I don't want to call them challenges, but issues, are we sure that we're going to be able to create a truly borderless Africa when we start to talk about these interactions across regions? For instance, West Africa, Central Africa, you spoke about your entry into Cameroon and how difficult that was. So what must we do first off to bring down these borders before we can truly say we are ready for a borderless Africa?
Good question. You know, the African has been programmed to hate his fellow African. And so when nationals from Nigeria are going into another African country, they are looked at with suspicion. When Ghanaians are going into North Africa, they are looked at with suspicion. As Africans, we need to, erase this programming of our minds, a programming of our minds that has pitched us against each other. We're one people. As a matter of fact, you look at, Dahomey Republic, the Kingdom of Dahomey, which encompassed, parts of Ghana, Togo, Nigeria, etc. You go into Togo or Benin, same language, same names. You come into, Nigeria, northern Nigeria, I don't see any difference, amongst us really and truly. I see a Nigerian, I see my fellow African brother. So Africans need to erase the notion that an African coming into your country is coming to commit crime. The second thing we need to do is to train and retrain border patrol officers. There's some very professional border patrol officers, but a lot of them are utterly rubbish. They are unprofessional. They are there to extort money from travelers who are seeking to genuinely go and do business or to go on a holiday. And so governments would have to make a serious commitment to train and retrain border patrol officers and then give them the necessary tools to work with. To think that a country accepts e-visas only at the airports and not, at the land borders is actually mind-boggling. But that is a challenge that we are faced with. But I also need to address the point you raised about language. Language should not keep us apart. Take Nigeria. How many languages? I've lost count.
250 plus.
A big country, yet you're able to live pretty much in harmony. So you extend it to the bigger, picture. Take Africa, lots of languages. You look at the European model, there are people who speak Bulgarian, people who speak Swiss, people who speak French, Belgian, Dutch, etc. Yet they are able to coalesce and work together, for the best interest of Europe. And so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to look at, models that have gone on elsewhere, where they've had challenges and perfect our own system in a manner, that put our people, first and in a manner that prospers our people. And that is why we have decided to embark on this arduous journey. Nobody really wants to do 40,000 kilometers in 163 days by road. You need to have a certain commitment to the continent of Africa. And we're doing this because largely we believe that Africa is a place to be. Africa has what it takes, to build our own infrastructure, to grow our economies, to create the necessary jobs, for the teeming youth within the continent of Africa. And so if we get the building blocks in place, if the AU stops looking at 2063 and we narrow it down to say 5 years or even maximum 7 years, I think it will be better for the good people of our continent. And let me make this point, that Africa's time is now. Leaders in Africa who act now would be remembered positively in history, and history would be kind to them. Leaders who drag their feet, who get in the way of a united Africa where our people can travel freely, where we can have one passport, where we can have one currency, those leaders would not be remembered kindly, when their history is written. And I hope that our leaders on the continent of Africa, would want, to leave a lasting legacy for themselves. Mm-hmm. And they would want to have a rethink, about the urgent need to create a borderless Africa for our people. Because bottom line, if the young people of Africa cannot get jobs, they would want to go into Europe and North America through, crazy means, and others would resort to crime. It is the lack of sustainable jobs that is creating crimes, all over the place. And we need to be able to deal with it positively.
All right, then.
Finally, to address this question, look, no country is perfect. No nation is perfect. But as Africans, we need to strive for perfection. If you go to the United States of America, they've got homelessness issues, they've got drugs issues. You land in Toronto and the place is filled with junkies, etc. So no nation is perfect. And we're not saying we want a perfect Africa, but let's strive for a better Africa where our people can live at least a decent life, where they don't have to, go through the desert or through the Amazon to get a better life for themselves.
Okay, Honorable Ras, thank you for that, answering that so beautifully. But we know that we have about 4 countries currently offering full visa-free access. That's Benin, Rwanda, the Gambia, and Seychelles. What strategies can convince more states to follow suit?
It's a question for the leaders to answer, and it's a choice between high crimes in your country because the youth can't get opportunities and jobs, and creating something or signing up to something, that expands opportunities for your nationals. It's a choice between expanding your tourism revenue. Look, Africa makes $1.9 billion from, tourism annually. This figure can be quadrupled if we get if we put our acts together, and get things right, and so there's more revenue from tourism to create, to build the roads, to build the infrastructure for our people, to build the hospitals, etc. And I believe that we have written letters to all the excellencies in the countries that we're visiting. And beyond these letters that we are presenting to leaders of countries, we want to submit a report to the regional blocs, that is the AU, the ECOWAS, SADC, EAC, and the rest of them, and all the leaders of Africa after our tour, just to let them know what we have gathered, traversing through 39 countries within Africa, and what needs to be done urgently for the benefit of our people.
Right.
And it's a passionate appeal to these leaders.
Okay.
And I do hope that they would listen.
Okay. Honorable Mubarak, my final question, I'm sure Queen has one more, but this might be my last one. What about the AES, the Alliance of the Sahel States? These are military-led states, only just recently, Mali, Burkina Faso, and I think Niger. How do you suggest that you or that we overcome that challenge when it comes to democratically led African states and also these military-led states? What would you suggest as a way of, relationship? Let's put it that way.
We've got to build more rapprochement. We've got to engage more, and we plan to, visit Burkina Faso, to visit Niger, to visit the Central African Republic and Chad, and to engage leaders there, and also to engage civil society in the media, and to try in our best way to convince them, to allow for a borderless, Africa from their countries, so that our people can prosper. The prosperity of Africa is hinged on their acceptance for us to do this. And I believe they are well-meaning Africans who want the best for their people. And I have no doubt in my mind that their intentions are good, and they would sign up or listen to us.
Well, I'm wondering whether this is going to be possible because of the relationship that these democratic countries actually have with countries that the Sahel states might not find friendly. So that in itself brings you a very different kind of challenge, because these alliances might not work well in these processes, in this utopian process that you are calling for. So that's why the question is very critical from me.
I'm going to be brutally frank.
Go ahead.
All the regional blocs have let us down. I mean, I'll give you a typical example. Morocco has had issues with Algeria since 1992 or 1994. You can't access Morocco from Algeria or Algeria from Morocco by land borders. The AU has not been able to solve this, and it's quite tragic. I know there are border issues between between Nigeria and Cameroon. It's lingered on forever. There are issues within Cameroon between the Anglophone side and the, Francophone side. These are issues that need to be dealt with head on. Engagements need to happen. And I'd call I'll call on the leaders to actually, sit up and get the right things done. Because the livelihood of our people within Africa is hinged on us getting the right things done. The alternative, it's not pretty. The alternative is not good for the continent of Africa. And for a continent that is as blessed as ours, we have no, we have no choice than to get it right for our people. Inaction is not an option.
So, Honorable Ras, we say that, decades ago we had the people like Gaddafi and Thomas Sankara made the same call What do you think went wrong in their own quest? So what do you think will be different from then and now?
So this is a grassroots movement. And as Queen, and viewers would know very much, anything organized or mobilized from within, from the masses, always tend to do very well. In the past, the approach has been engage African leaders and let them get it done. But of course, you know that, African leaders come and go because we haven't built institutions properly within the continent. If the leader is out of power, the next administration doesn't want to carry on the blueprint that has been left. But I think if we see this and rally around this, as a mass movement for the liberation of Africa, for the empowerment of our people, this is something that every leader, whether in opposition or in government, would want to sign up onto. And whether it's 5 years or 10 years from now, irrespective of who is in power, we need to make sure that everyone is, adhering to what we have all agreed to do, which is to have a borderless Africa where our people prosper. And let me use this opportunity to clarify the point about security concerns, because I know this is something that keeps coming up, and some countries within Africa are unwilling to make this happen because they have security concerns. I say to these African leaders that let's use technology, let's use intelligence sharing, to address those security concerns. And we cannot hide behind security concerns to deprive our people from opportunities, to deprive Africans from accessing our respective countries. The opportunities, the benefits, that come with people coming into your country. I mean, the tourism revenue, hotels, vehicles, food, souvenirs, you name it, is enormous. People coming to learn about cultures, etc. The benefits far outweigh these security concerns that, there is. And we are in 2025. And so we should not behave as if this were the black and white era where you don't have access to, information and technology. We can address those security concerns if there's a political will. And Benin Republic is a typical example. Nigerians have not flooded Benin. Nigerians have not flooded Ghana. Neither have Ghanaians taken over Nigeria. The notion that if we allow a borderless Africa, some big country is going to come and swallow us, is just excuses and lame excuses. Benin Republic is doing very well for themselves, all right? And in spite of this, they haven't been overtaken by their big brothers. And so we need to look at the opportunities that are inherent in a borderless Africa, than the challenges. And those challenges are human that can be surmounted. I mean, we drove through the southern part of Nigeria, which has been touted as some of the unsafe parts of the country. I say that, look, I don't see why Nigeria can't create enabling security to boost tourism within Nigeria.
Do you think along with this should be a unified currency?
It's not just a unified currency, but one passport for all of us. Because we are in Central Africa now. We have to change money into Central African currency. We were in Nigeria last week. We're spending Naira. All of these things distort trade. It makes trade and business very, very difficult. It makes, attracting business onto the continent very difficult. So ultimately, this is what a borderless Africa should result in. This is what a visa-free Africa should result in, where we have one currency, where we have one passport, and in a long term, where we even decide that, look, we should even have 1 or 2 or 3 or maximum 5 African languages as our official languages, because ultimately, we've got to shed the vestiges of colonization. We should be able to speak in our own languages. We should be able to communicate in a language that our kids understand. I don't see why children who go to school should be beaten for not speaking English. I don't see why they should be beaten, for not speaking French. When you go to France, they don't speak our languages. When you go to China, they speak Mandarin, etc.
And so what language would that be?
Shedding of
Honorable Mubarak, what language would that be? And this is where the wahala starts.
So if we sit at the table and look at the bigger picture, and think about what would you rather have? You know, a colonizer's language or an African language? I want an African language because the colonizer doesn't mean well for me. And I say this without apology. Look at what they did to Lumumba. Up till date, no sincere apology for the murder of Lumumba. No apology for the coup d'etat in Ghana. Look at what they did to Sankara. And every now and then, look at what they even did most recently to Gaddafi, that a sovereign African country can be invaded, that Europe can decide that, you know, Libya would be a no-fly zone, and then they would literally destroy a country for their selfish interests. And as Africans would put up with this.
Oh,
I don't hate Europeans or North Americans. What I want is the best interest of my people.
Indeed.
And the best interest of my people is for us to be able to trade more amongst ourselves, to speak our language. I mean, look at Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa or all the beautiful languages in Nigeria. Or
and
Twi, or Gra, or, you know, Efe.
Oh, there we are highlighting the
to show the
challenge.
world.
And he
Honorable,
pronounced it so
there
well.
we are highlighting the challenges with all the languages we're bringing up now that it could be. But Honorable, we want to say thank you.
No, but the thing is, there's a working language. So we're not saying everybody else should, you know, stop using their language.
Yeah.
If you go to the European Union, they have a working language.
Yes, indeed.
Which is French, you know, English and
indeed.
I think German and Dutch.
True.
Africa can decide on a working language.
Honorable,
Arabic.
Honorable, we've had a very interesting conversation with you. Unfortunately, we're almost hitting the top of the hour, so we have to go. But it is a truly African vision, and I'm sure that it will be a very prosperous one for all African nations if we just put our heads and hands together. I want to say thank you very much for joining us to have this conversation inside of Focus